My name is Gypsy Tao. I am a Bay Area activist. Today I would like to talk about David dePape, who happens to be my ex and the father of my children. About a year ago, David was accused of breaking into Nancy Pelosi's house and allegedly hitting Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. I believe the story to be completely false, and I will tell you why. At first, I would like to say a few words about myself, for those of you who don't know me. Once again, my name is Gypsy Tao. I am Russian-Ukrainian, of Russian-Ukrainian descent. My father is Ukrainian, my mother is Russian. I am definitely on the Ukrainian side and the Palestinian side. But anyways, I just spent 3 years and 3 months in prison on false charges. My case had to do with me trying to help my son's best friend get to a youth shelter in Oakland, a youth shelter called Dreamcatcher, because his friend was in a really bad abusive situation at home and really needed help. Authorities, every type of authorities that I contacted refused to help him, and we ended up trying to take matters into our own hands, found the youth shelter to bring him to, and my son tried to meet with him in front of his school during lunch break, in front of Target and in front of his school, and offered him a lift ride to the youth shelter. I was arrested about an hour later, or at least an hour, maybe even 2 hours later, on the other side of Berkeley, and charged with attempted child kidnapping. The case is completely false, and my case is under appeal right now.
Hello, my name is Daniel Gonzalez. I'm Gypsy Taub's son. My mom never tried to kidnap anyone. Me and my mom were trying to help my friend get to a youth shelter.
Anyways, enough said about me. I would like to speak about David now. I guess I met David many years ago. I guess it's been like 20, almost 23 years now, 23 years. And we met in Hawaii, and we were in Hawaii for 2 years, and then I moved to San Francisco because I wanted to become an activist. So we all came to San Francisco. At the time, I just had my daughter and was pregnant. I had my second son, my third son, later here in the Bay Area. So I would like to talk a little bit about the story of David. I have not had really any contact with David since about 2015, so that makes it 8 years. Well, I mean, I have talked to him recently on the phone since I've been out of prison. I just got out of prison about 6 months ago, and when this whole story unfolded, I had no contact with David at the time for a while, and I was in prison. So, you know, I had limited access to the internet, actually no access to the internet. The only access I had was my children. They would tell me about the news reports that they read and the comments that people posted, and how absolutely inconsistent all the evidence is. Anyways, when I first heard about it, what happened is I called my children, and my son answers the phone, and I hear him saying something like, "Get away from here." Anyways, he was saying that there was a ton of reporters and they wouldn't leave, and I was like, okay, so, you know, what's going on? He said, well, David David hit somebody in the head, like Pelosi's husband, in the head with a hammer. I was like, wow, that's really crazy. And that was the first news I heard. Just so you know, I would like to just mention that I absolutely admire Nancy Pelosi. I've admired her for a long time, especially since she put up such a fight against Trump, and she is such a brave woman. She's one of the bravest people on this planet, in my opinion. I absolutely admire her. She's a great inspiration to me, and I'm sure to many others. So, David, when I lived with David, his political views, he was 20 years old when we met. I was 30, something like that. And I was I really became an activist when we were together, but I already knew a lot about politics. I come from Russia. That's where I was raised, in communist Russia. So government propaganda is something that I'm used to, and I'm used to looking for signs of it, and I see a lot of things pretty easily that a lot of people ignore or just don't notice. So anyways, I was told that supposedly David was being accused of being a Trump supporter and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, all right, well, that isn't true, because David was very progressive. His views were very progressive. He went to every single anti-war protest with me. We always voted for Democrats or the Green Party, and if anything, Democrats were not left enough for us. Like we voted for the Green Party, Matt Gonzalez, Ralph Nader. Those are the people that we admired. You know, I did vote for Obama. I really love Obama, by the way. And we were always progressive, against the war, against any kind of violence. David never believed in resolving any kind of conflict, political conflict, through violence. That is something neither of us believed. That's why we went to peace protests, and we were always peaceful in our protesting. We did not believe in using any kind of violence during protest. So when they told me that David did this because he's a Trump supporter, okay, that made no sense at all. I was like, okay, that is not true. And then, you know, I thought that maybe this happened, even though it sounded really strange to me. I mean, I thought this happened, actually. I believed it at first. I was thinking that maybe the only way I can see him hitting someone with a hammer is if he was doing it in self-defense, if he was trying to escape from some kind of abusive situation or life-threatening situation, and he, you know, the person wasn't letting him go, and so he had to use the hammer to just, you know, free himself and run away. That was the only way I could picture him ever hitting someone with a hammer, especially an old man. So then I realized that the reports were conflicting, very conflicting. Actually, I called the news stations. I called a bunch of news stations. Actually, they contacted me. I contacted them. And I told everybody, listen, David is not a Trump supporter. He's never been a Trump supporter. He's never been anti-Semitic. I am myself, I have a lot of Jewish blood in me. My children, his children are Jewish. I'm Jewish. So how does he hate Jews so much that he spent, you know, half his life with a Jewish woman and had Jewish children with her? That doesn't make sense. So I just was like, okay, well, he's being accused of all this nonsense. First, their news reports were conflicting. Like, first they said that he got in there somehow, and everybody was wondering, how did he get in there? How is it possible that he, you know, bypassed all the security that there's no doubt is monitoring her house? How is it possible? How did he get in there? Because the first number of days there was not a single word in the media about how he got in. So I was like, well, he was obviously brought in because how else would he pass that security? That was my first thought. And then we were, like, I was in prison, so I didn't see this myself, but I heard this from my kids and other inmates who had TVs. I don't watch TV, but other inmates who had television would tell me what they saw. So if if I remember something wrong, or if I got some of my information is incorrect, please let me know, or, you know, I will find out. I'm not saying that everything I'm saying is 100% correct. I know my memory isn't perfect, so, but I remember the story evolving like this. Okay, first they were saying he was there and Paul came out with a hammer to defend himself or something along those lines, and David supposedly took the hammer from him and then hit him. I was like, okay, well, yeah, that, you know, sort of makes sense, although, once again, David is not the kind of person who would act that way. I've never seen him do anything violent. I've never even heard him raise his voice. David never even raised his voice. He was very quiet. He was very afraid of people. When I first met him in Hawaii, our landlord said that David is the quietest person he's ever seen. He's never seen anyone who was more afraid of people than David. So he was extremely shy. I was like his only girlfriend for many years. Even after we broke up, it's like he was just very shy and terrified of. Well, he was terrified of people at first. Later he became less shy. Because he was living with us and becoming less more sociable because I'm a sociable person. So it was helping him become a sociable person. However, he was always terrified of authorities. He was afraid of making people angry. He was very polite, and he was definitely very afraid of any kind of authority figures. David comes from a very abusive past. He had tremendous abuse in his infancy and childhood that we uncovered, while we were together. He exhibits all the symptoms of very deep trauma. He has always had very deep PTSD. So, anyways, he was never the kind of person that would actively attack anyone, especially in front of an authority figure. That is just no way in hell. Like, I just don't. I would have a very hard time believing it, and I would only believe it if I felt that the rest of the evidence really clearly supported that fact, that allegation. So at first we heard that David came in and whatever, somehow he got in there. Paul Pelosi came out with a hammer. David took it from him and hit him. I was like, okay. And then the next story came out saying something about both. At one point, saying both of them had hammers. I was like, wow, that's an interesting twist. And then all of a sudden they're coming out with a report saying David had zip ties and rope in his backpack. It's like, wait a minute. So all this time they've been reporting and not a word about ropes or zip ties. Now they're talking about ropes and zip ties. And I told my kids, I said, hey guys, you better start recording those news clips because who knows, a week from now they're gonna say that he came in with a machine gun or something. Okay, so I was like, okay, conflicting news reports. That right there tells you this is all fabricated. This is not the first time it's been done. I mean, there's so much deception and so much propaganda and so much cover-up in the American news media. We know that. We all know that. So with regards to many different issues. So, okay, now, next thing they're talking about, I guess him breaking in with a hammer, which is like, wait a minute, did he break in with a hammer? Or did Paul come out with a hammer? So how is it possible that he broke in with a hammer and then Paul came out with a hammer against him? So did Paul come out with a hammer? Is that where the hammer came from? If Paul came out with a hammer, then how was David able to use it to break in if he didn't even have any access to it until he saw Paul inside with a hammer? Makes no sense. So then they were talking about a third person who was present there but didn't want to be identified. It's like, what? Okay, imagine when there's a scene and Nancy Pelosi, who's like second person to the president, police arrives and there's a third person and that person just says, well, you can just go ahead and deal with these two guys, but I just choose to be anonymous. Goodbye, I'm just gonna go home. So is that like believable? So anyways, for a very long time, for literally 3 months, there was no body camera footage. For 3 months. Why did it take 3 months to release? There was no break-in footage, no camera footage, no dispatch, nothing. For 3 months, there was nothing. No witness testimonies whatsoever. I reviewed some clips. I have not reviewed a lot so far, but the only so-called witness testimony I saw was some woman saying, "Oh my God, this is just so frustrating" or something. So she basically says nothing. There is no testimony such as, oh hi, I am the neighbor of whatever Pelosi, and I heard all this whatever glass breaking, and I called the police. They should have called the police. If he really did break in, it's very loud when somebody tries to break a window with a hammer. Very loud. If Paul managed to sleep through it, I don't know how he managed to do that. If he was really drunk, maybe, but he doesn't appear drunk in the footage. He is able to walk, right? So unless he's dead, he should have been able to hear all that noise. And first of all, the security, the police should have known. The police should have been there. They should have been monitoring the house, which I will never believe that Pelosi's house was not monitored. I'm sorry. The police, when Nancy Pelosi demanded answers from the police, they responded by saying they don't have enough resources. So they have enough resources to put a freaking spy camera on every street corner to spy on regular citizens, but they don't have enough police force, enough funding to hire one person to watch the security cameras of the person who is second most important person after the United States president. Do you believe that? Can anyone believe that? I don't believe that. So supposedly police was asleep, and there's Capitol Police, and then there's local police, and somehow they all missed it, okay? And he was banging on this window supposedly with a hammer, and somehow everybody missed it too. Paul slept through it, all the neighbors slept through it. Really, Paul should have called the police right away when he heard the windows crashing. That's what should have been done, and the police should have been there before David even got in the house. Or, right away, shortly after. There should have never been any delay with that. So there should have been neighbors who called the police. If somebody tries to break into my house with a hammer, police will be there before they even get in, because the neighbors will call the police, okay? So the whole story is just completely insane. And let me just talk about a few different things. Okay, yeah, once again, no witness testimonies, no explanation how he got in for many days. I looked at the broken window. First of all, it looks like it's protruding outwards, the pieces of glass. You can see the shadows of the trees on them. I can, maybe take a better look at it in the future, but it really looks like it was broken from the inside. The size of that hole, in my opinion, is not big enough for David to fit through that hole. Just so you know, David is really tall. He's at least 6 foot tall. I don't know how much he weighs, but he looked really heavy in the video. So a guy like that to crawl through that window, and the window was completely clean. There's nothing there, like there's no pieces of his clothing, no blood on that glass. When the police supposedly arrives and this so-called little fight supposedly happens, there is not, David's clothes are not torn by that glass. There's no blood. His hands nothing is bleeding. And even though he says that his hands were bleeding in the so-called police interview, there's no blood. There's nothing. He looks completely clean. It doesn't look like he went through that window, and it's not even big enough for him to get through there, in my opinion. I don't know how big it is, but that it really looks to me like quite a bit smaller than David's size. So once again, no words about how he got in until days later. Wait a minute, how can that kind of information just lay dormant for days and not be addressed? Because that's like the first person everyone's gonna ask. How is it? How did they get in? How did this person get in? Third person, once again, very strange about that third person. I would like to also say a few words about David's so-called confession. There is this tape that we have. It's only audio. For some reason, there's no video. And this is supposedly David talking to the police. I would like to say a few things about it. First of all, why is there no video? Why is there no video? Is it because he was beaten and forced to say those things that he said? Is that why he was in the hospital for days? He was actually neither in the hospital nor in custody. He was not in custody for days. We could not get a hold of him or find him anywhere. They kept saying he's not in custody for days and days. And he was sent to the hospital as well. So what's going on here? We don't even know when that video was recorded. It was released 3 months later. So we really have no way of knowing when and how it was recorded. Why is there no video? There's a bunch of really strange noise in the beginning. And then throughout the video, like a bunch of people talking out loud. Like, I'm sorry, you are doing an interview with this person who supposedly broke into Pelosi's house, and you're not sitting in a quiet room inside of a police station or prison, like, and you're not in a quiet room to record him so you can hear clearly everything he says. Why is there no video? And there's all this clanking noise in the background. So it's clear that there's something else going on.
This is Sergeant Hurley, star number 1583. It's October 28th, 2022 at 0736. This is in regards to case number 220-741-717. Going to attempt to conduct an interview with David dePape. D-E-P-A-P-E. David?
Well, I was going to basically hold her hostage, and I was going to talk to her and basically film her while I do. And
Hold her hostage and do what?
and talk to her. If she told the truth, I'd let her go scot-free.
Right.
If she fucking lied, that was going to break me down.
Why wasn't his mugshot released? Why was he in the hospital for days? I mean, David, why was David in the hospital for days, and why did he show up to his first court appearance with a sling, with his arm in a sling and a dislocated shoulder? You know, so what was that all about? Let's see. Now I want to point something out about the video footage. So the footage of David supposedly breaking in is very interesting. So first of all, the angle that the camera is at does not show the video of David actually breaking the window. You actually do not see the hammer hitting the glass. It's taken from such an angle that you actually don't see the action that they're claiming is happening there. You just see David swinging, and then a bunch of flakes are being literally thrown from the camera. If you pay attention to that, you will see that those flakes appearing from the camera randomly. They're not coming from the window. They're not going in the direction of the camera. They're just randomly flying around, and it's like somebody just blowing them in front of the camera. And it seems to me, whatever, to create the illusion or some kind of an impression that there's broken glass. And broken glass is not going to float around like that. It's ridiculous. Somebody just throws all this stuff in front of the camera. Now, and we can't see what David's actually doing. The best part of it is the time code. It's 5 in the morning. I believe it's in the upper left corner. I'm not looking at the video right now, but it's 5 in the freaking morning. That's what the camera says, 5 in the morning. So that's what's up with that one, with that video. And then the body cam video that supposedly is a video of the police coming to Pelosi's house has time code in the upper right corner, and the time code actually says 9:30 a.m. So according to these two videos, supposed security camera video and supposed body cam footage, according to those videos, if they are true, there is a 4.5 hour gap.
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope.
Hey. What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting an answer on call back.
Bro,
Getting calls from the area that it's not getting
I got him, Michael.
Between the so-called break-in and the police arriving, 4.5 hours. So are they telling us that David spent 4.5 hours with Paul and didn't do anything to him? He waited for the police to arrive, and then as soon as the police arrived, he hit him in the head. Plus, the whole scene of that little struggle over the hammer, that whole conversation and the struggle and the way David just takes it and hits him in the head. It's so fake. Even my prison guards said, it's so fake, it's so disgusting. I mean, my kids told me that so many people on the internet are pissed off and feel that it's fabricated. like I said, even prison guards thought it was false. And I mean, those people are police officers, okay? So they deal with real crime. They're familiar with how things really play out in real life. So yeah, so we have a 4.5 hour gap between David supposedly breaking in and the police arriving. Next thing that I want to say is that the DA, Brooke Jenkins, the DA, tells the media that David broke in around 2, it was either 2 a.m. or 2:30 a.m.
At approximately 2:27 this morning, San Francisco police officers were dispatched to the residence of Speaker Nancy Pelosi regarding an A-priority well-being check.
So here we have DA saying it's 2 in the morning. The security camera showing 5 in the morning. The police coming showing 9:30 in the morning. So did the DA not even look at the body cam footage? How could she be so confused about the time of the break-in? Or the time that the police arrived? Did she not know what time her own police department? I mean, I guess it's not her police department, but she has access to all of that, obviously, right? So how could she not know what time he really broke in? I'm going to say a few other things. So the door opens. First of all, it's unclear who opens it, and maybe it was David. David was on the left side as you're looking at it. David's on our left, Pelosi's on our right. It looks like David opens the door and kind of steps back. It may have been David who opened it. And then this fake little scene occurs. Anyways, let's imagine that this is for real, okay? So first of all, why would David open the door to the police if he is the perpetrator? How much sense does that make? Okay, so the door opens and then the police see David and Paul struggling over a hammer, and they say, "Oh, please drop it." Oh no. And the police officer just stands there watching this and does absolutely nothing. In fact, he, instead of jumping in and grabbing that hammer, he pulls out his flashlight, even though it's light enough to where you can see everything. There is no need for a flashlight. So the police officer comes in or opens the door. He sees both of David and Paul very clearly. They're supposedly struggling over a hammer. Instead of jumping in and grabbing that hammer, he whips out his, he just like tries to sweet talk them into it and dropping it. Then he whips out his flashlight and starts shining it, of all places, at their freaking belly button, like at their stomach. Whenever I have interacted with police after dark, if they couldn't see, like, I mean, I've traveled a lot. I have no prior criminal record to this stupid fake case that I was accused of, but I've done a lot of traveling. You know, I'm a hippie, I travel a lot. So, you know, I've had interactions with police. Usually it had to do with things like, oh, whatever, we're sleeping somewhere we're not supposed to be sleeping. At a rest area, you know, what a crime. We're committing crimes by sleeping. So the cost would drop, and the first thing they do is they flash the light at your eyes. And that's smart, because they flash the light at your eyes, they can see who you are right away, or they can see your face, and you can't see anything. They blind you, so it incapacitates you in a way. So why didn't they shine that light at David's eyes? Because if they did, he wouldn't be able to hit anyone. If they did that, David wouldn't be able to even see, okay? But an even more important question is, why did the police officers stand there watching, doing nothing about it, and then instead of jumping in and taking that hammer, he pulls out a flashlight and starts holding that flashlight in his hands while these two people are fighting over a hammer. Not just any people, this is the husband of Nancy Pelosi, who is the second most important person to the president. Would you think that maybe the police officers who come to their house should be maybe better trained than an average police officer, or at least be average and not be a complete just lunatic or a complete just idiot? Like, oh, you know, I show up to the scene, people are fighting over a hammer, and I pull out my flashlight, even though I can see everything, and I start shining at their stomach. I mean, hello. I mean, who can believe this? How can anyone believe this? Another thing I want to point out is that the footage, their body camera footage, is edited. You know, if you ever do video editing, you will see it right away, or if you just slow down, you will see it, because first they show this, whatever, the first scene when they open the door, then there is a cut. It's clear that there is a cut, and then there is some whatever struggle footage supposedly on the floor, and then there's another cut. So there's three pieces pieced together. They're not showing us continuous police cam, body cam footage. They're not showing us continuous footage. And also the pool of blood that Pelosi claims that he woke up in a pool of blood. There was no blood actually at all. You don't see any blood at all in that scene, where if he was really hit with a hammer, I would think that there should have been some blood somewhere, okay? And like him waking up in a pool of blood, does that mean that the officers like just left him there and let him bleed and then came back and got him? Or what is that supposed to mean? Because, you know, I'm sure the medics came and took him, and never mind. Okay, just what else did I want to say? Okay, so yeah, once again, no blood. Nobody has any blood. David doesn't have any blood from going through the window. There's nothing. His hair is not messed up. His clothes are not messed up. There's nothing. It's like, you know, if you try to get through a glass window like that, I guarantee you would not look clean like that. And the window looks completely clean also. It looks perfectly white and clean. Now, the next thing I want to address. Do you guys really believe that you can hit an 82-year-old man in the head with a hammer from standing right next to him from this distance? A man who is 42 years old, so basically strong in his prime, you could say, who is David's size, which David is really tall and big. So David takes a hammer and hits him, as they say, at least twice, and Paul just survives it. And not only does he survive it, he survives it with flying colors. He literally gets out of the hospital like 5 days later or something like that. I believe it was no more than a week later. I believe it was 5, if not less. He literally is out of the hospital within days. They say that he has very serious injuries, but at the same time, the doctor predicts full recovery. Now, how can a doctor know there's going to be full recovery if there's serious injuries? How can he know off the bat? And is that a serious injury if there's going to be full recovery? Very strange. David also goes to the hospital for about the same amount of time as Paul. Question arises, why is David in the hospital? Whatever we see in that footage is just them more or less politely arresting him. I don't see any police brutality in that video that they showed us, that they claim was their body cam footage. I don't see any of that. So it's like, how did he end up with a dislocated shoulder and who knows what other injuries? Why is it that the mugshot was not released? All those questions. Now the dispatch call. Now that is the biggest joke. The call that Pelosi supposedly makes to the police, telling them whatever about David, where he doesn't ask for help. If somebody was attacking me and I managed to make a phone call, I would say, please come here, I need help, I'm getting attacked. I would be screaming on the phone, right? I would just be screaming my head off. I'd be like screaming, please help me, come here right now. Someone's attacking, someone's trying to kill me, okay? Instead, Paul is being completely calm. He's saying he's there with his friend and everything is fine. First of all, if David is such a monster, if he was just such a dangerous monster, how did he let Paul make a phone call to the police? And didn't he come in there with ropes and zip ties? Wasn't Paul supposed to be tied up? Where are the zip ties? Where's the rope? Why didn't he use it? Why didn't he use it if he brought it there? Why did he use those things? Also, They say that Paul supposedly called the police and then left the line open so that the police could hear what was happening. And then they're pretending that they're letting us hear what happened on that open line that Paul supposedly left open for everyone to hear. Instead of us hearing what is happening there supposedly, instead, we hear a male voice talk about what happened. Not Paul, not David, but someone, supposedly a police officer, describing what happened. Wait a minute. That open line that Paul supposedly left, wasn't that supposed to contain, audio of what was going on there? But instead they replace it with some dude telling us what they want us to think. That's obviously fabricated. It's obviously done on purpose. It's not something you can do it by mistake.
San Francisco Police 74.
2022.
Oh, I guess I called by mistake. What is it?
18 seconds.
This is San Francisco Police. Do you need help?
Oh, well, there's a gentleman here just waiting for my wife to come back. Nancy Pelosi.
2:23 and
He's just waiting for her to come back, but she's not going to be here for a day, so I guess we'll have to wait.
0.
Okay, do you need police, fire, or medical for anything?
8 seconds.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
0, 2:23 and 58 seconds.
Is the Capitol Police around?
2:20.
No, this is San
They usually
Francisco.
protect my wife. They're usually here at the house protecting my wife.
No, this is San Francisco Police.
Friday, October.
I understand.
8, 2022.
Okay, well.
0, 2:24
I don't know, what do you
and
think?
18 seconds.
I think everything's good. He thinks everything's good. I've got a problem, but he thinks everything's good.
0,
Okay.
2:24
Call us back if you change your mind.
8
No.
seconds.
This gentleman just came into the house, and he wants to wait here for my wife to come home.
0,
And so,
2:24 and 48.
anyway, he told me to put the phone down.
Do you know who the person is?
No, I don't know who he is. He has this. He's telling me not to. He's telling me not to do anything.
What is your address, sir?
0, 2:25 and 0.
What is your name?
Seconds.
My name is Paul Pelosi.
Friday.
Anyway, this gentleman says that
28,
he thinks everything ought to, he told me to put the phone down
2:25
and just do what he said.
and 18 seconds.
Okay?
Okay, what's the gentleman's name?
I don't know. What's that?
My name's David.
The name is David.
Okay, and who is David?
5.
I don't know. What's that?
I'm a friend of theirs.
Yeah, he says he's a friend, but as I said, I've never.
But you don't know who he is?
25 and
No, ma'am.
48 seconds.
Okay.
He's telling me I'm being very leading, so I got to stop talking to you, okay?
2:25 and
Okay.
50
You sure I can stay on the phone with you just to make sure everything's okay?
No, he wants me to get that off the phone.
0, 2:26
Okay.
and 0, 8
Thank you.
seconds.
Okay, bye.
So yeah, he doesn't declare an emergency. He doesn't sound scared. He just has this stupid chat with the police, and David is being accused of having all these views, all these extremist views. I saw a couple of clips where they talk about his blogs, where they show some thumbnails and some headlines, and they make these allegations that David is this Trump supporter, that he is just this extremist right-wing nut, terrorist or whatever, and that he has all these terrible things in his blog, like anti-Semitic comments, attacks on the Jews, whatever, some other stuff that they claim, but not once did they actually quote anything from the blog itself. They said, oh, he has those anti-Semitic comments. Like, who funded Hitler? Wait a minute, who funded Hitler? How is that anti-Semitic? And why don't they show us what he had to say about who funded Hitler? Because we know who funded Hitler, actually. Bush family funded Hitler and was convicted for aiding the enemy in 1945. So, anyways, that was a bit of a tangent. David's blogs were taken down. Within days after he was arrested, his blogs were taken down for some strange reason. So we can't see what's on those blogs. And they go around spewing all this propaganda about David and all these conspiracy theories, what I call them, about David, spreading conspiracy theories about how he is in conspiracy with all these other people who stormed the White House on January 6th, when Trump, organized this overthrow. So they constantly show those clips, trying to make it look like David is somehow a part of it, which is just pure propaganda. That's pure brainwashing. Pure mind control is what it is. Once again, why can't we see David's blogs? Why can't we go read them and find out for ourselves what kind of crazy person David is? Why did they take them down? That's destruction of evidence. Was it FBI who took it down? They're destroying evidence. And they're broadcasting all this propaganda and all these statements about his blogs that are probably unfounded, most likely. They never even quote him, but they just say stuff about it and it's not there. So they're brainwashing all the people in San Francisco who are going to end up on his jury with all this stuff. So they would be all indoctrinated if they ever end up, coming to his trial and being chosen as jury members. So yeah, no responsibility for anything. The blog's taken down. The American people cannot see the blog. They have to believe what the news media says. So, Epoch Times story. I was interviewed by Epoch Times, and in that story, they wrote a great story about me, about David, and they quoted me in there a bunch. In that story, I was asking Nancy Pelosi to release the footage. If she has any, I said, if you have any control over this investigation, which I'm not going to assume you do, please release the body camera footage. Please release the security cameras footage. Please tell the authorities to release footage from different angles. And release witness testimonies as well, instead of spreading conspiracy theories about David. That story was censored by Google. When I tried to go to it, the headline was there, but when you click on it, it takes you nowhere. The page is gone. So they censored it. They went, and whoever, just don't think of any conspiracies now. This is pure coincidence that story gets censored, that Google takes it down. I had to contact Epoch Times itself and told them that I want a copy of that story, that it was taken down. They sent me a copy. That's how I got a copy. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have access to it. So Miguel Almaguer is the next part of the story. Is a reporter. He actually interviewed me 2 days before he was suspended. Miguel Almaguer made a news report about David, questioning what happened there between the time that David got there and the time the police got there. Miguel Almaguer raises the issue of Paul Pelosi not leaving the house, not declaring an emergency, not asking for help, instead walking back into the house. And then somebody found it inconvenient that kind of information is out there because it contradicts the rest of their fabricated story. It just doesn't make them sound good. Anyways, for some strange reason, the story gets censored. It gets taken down. NBC News. Miguel Almaguer gets suspended, and for a while he doesn't appear on any news networks after that. So he's punished for airing his story. His story is taken down. My kids were telling me how multiple news reports were getting deleted and taken down from their websites. Another very suspicious fact, Miguel also says that Paul opens the door, but in the video, in the police body cam that was released later, it's not Paul. It's actually, the door is open on the David side, and it could have been David or some other person, but not Paul.
Hi. How you doing?
Oh, yeah.
What's going on, man?
But a little bit earlier in the show, I mentioned Paul Pelosi. Tonight, there's more confusion about what happened inside Nancy Pelosi's house on October 28th. Now, if you remember, that's when a nudist named David dePape attacked Paul Pelosi with a hammer. Now, according to a federal indictment by the Federal Department of Justice, police officers opened the door to Nancy Pelosi's home. Now, this is fascinating because it's in direct contradiction to the filings by San Francisco District Attorney and local law enforcement who say that no, in fact, Paul Pelosi opened the door. An NBC News affiliate in the Bay Area just reported that according to law enforcement sources who saw body cam footage, the DA is right. The DOJ is wrong. Paul Pelosi opened the door. Now, why is this important? Because asking for details or facts when it comes to this story have again been dismissed as a conspiracy, as an entire narrative that David dePape was an insurrectionist and a MAGA Republican was built. No questions that could get in the way of that narrative. For example, this isn't the first time that NBC News contradicted the DOJ's narrative. Earlier this month, NBC ran this report, which stated that Paul Pelosi didn't think he was in danger when David dePape was in his home.
Sources familiar with what unfolded in the Pelosi residence now revealing when officers responded to the high-priority call, they were seemingly unaware they'd been called to the home of the Speaker of the House. After a knock and announce, the front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. The 82-year-old did not immediately declare an emergency or try to leave his home, but instead began walking several feet back into the foyer toward the assailant and away from police. Why Pelosi didn't try to flee or tell responding officers he was in distress is unclear.
We still don't know exactly what unfolded between Mr. Pelosi and the suspect for the 30 minutes they were alone inside that house before police arrived.
Now, that report by NBC News that seems to at least be in part supported by the new investigative report from an NBC affiliate in the Bay Area was totally scrubbed from its website. They also suspended that reporter, Miguel Almaguer. He has not been heard from, no tweets, no appearances on television, for almost 2 weeks. NBC claims that Almaguer violated their standards. What standards were those? See, no NBC reporters were ever suspended for the lies that they told.
And with the Nancy Pelosi story, I would just point out, Paul Pelosi's story, the security situation alone is worthy of a serious deep dive. How is it that this guy, if he was invited in or wasn't invited in, was able to attack Nancy Pelosi's husband, the police response? All of this should be something that journalists want to know right away, but they're trying to slow walk this because they know that there was a story to tell at the time to help Democrats in an election, and that was all that mattered.
There was a story to tell. Are you referencing there, Buck, the entire narrative, this ornate narrative that was built upon a foundation that David dePape was a MAGA Republican and somehow, therefore, this is connected to January 6th? That was the narrative that was built with very few facts to support it underneath. And now we understand that if you ask for facts which are now coming forward to try to clarify what is the story, you're guilty of conspiracy. No need to make an affirmative case, right? Simply questioning the facts makes you guilty of a conspiracy.
Another thing I'd like to bring up, why didn't Paul get arrested too? They arrive, the police arrives on the scene, and they see two people fighting over a hammer. In that situation, they both should have been arrested. Because I spent quite a bit of time in jail, I learned things that otherwise I didn't know before. But what I learned from other inmates is that when there's an incident, police arrives and they literally arrest everyone. They arrest everyone, and then they decide who they're going to let go and what kind of charges they're going to give to whom. You know, who's going to be let go of on their own recognizance and has to come back to court, or maybe they just release some people altogether, but they literally arrest everyone in the beginning, and then later they decide. And now, if Paul was holding a hammer in his hand, what was Paul's intention? Why did he grab that hammer? Was he trying to hit David? Did he grab that hammer so that he could hit David? Shouldn't he be charged with attempted murder? Shouldn't he be charged with attempted murder if he was holding onto that hammer, planning to use it how? Against David, I would think, right? So why wasn't Paul arrested with David? Why just David went to jail? I want to bring up the fact that Paul spent a whole whooping 5 days in jail for driving drunk, for drunk driving, which, you know, just tells you right there, of course, he would not be given any kind of special privileges, would he now? Where in the Constitution does it say that if you are related to a high politician, you get special privileges and you can commit crimes all you want, and the most you're going to get is 5 days in jail? Why does he get 5 days in jail for driving drunk and endangering people's lives? How is he so special? Obviously, the system is crooked, and the system is obviously covering up his crimes. Why were David's blogs deleted? Somebody is threatened by what was on those blogs. Either because it's completely inconsistent with their story, or because there's stuff on those blogs that they don't want us to know, that they don't want publicized. So David did do research about government crimes and a shadow government. You know, you can call it conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. But he was a truth seeker. And he wanted to know more about what was going on. So the things that he would publish on his blog and things that him and I discussed and the things that he was interested in was about finding out the real truth behind the scenes, what's really going on in politics, and not what kind of nonsense or propaganda is being presented to us on the TV screen. So I can see his blog being a threat to people in the government. He is an activist. He was an activist. And I can see that being one of the reasons why he is being framed in this case. I want to say a quick word about the DA who is prosecuting the case. Her name is Brooke Jenkins. This DA once again tells us that the police arrived at 2 in the morning, or the break-in occurred around 2 in the morning. The security camera shows the break-in at 5 in the morning, and the police arriving at 9:30. So a DA who doesn't even look at the police cameras to tell us a completely different time when he got in. What does that tell you about this DA? And also, she is a very unpopular DA. I did a little bit of research about her. There's a website out there called brookeisaterribleda.com, and it says Brooke Jenkins is terrible for San Francisco. It says San Francisco's district attorney is shady, corrupt, and her aggressive policies are making San Francisco more dangerous. Join the team to stop her. There is a table of contents on that website that goes in deeper details about these following subjects. Paid $150,000 by a Republican billionaire-linked nonprofit. Gutting the DA office with firings. Irresponsible hires. Failing to prosecute police and wasting resources. Expanding government surveillance. Increasing mass incarceration. Brooke's shady relationships and misconduct. Brooke's track record. So you can learn more about her. Do some research. Do your own research. And finally, I would like to talk about this video that I found when I started doing a little bit of research about glass and how easy is it to break glass, to break a window with a hammer. I came across a video that was posted 5 years ago. In this video, they show different kinds of glass. I have no doubt that Nancy Pelosi's house had the strongest available glass on her windows. I have no doubt about it. Here, I would like to invite you to watch this video.
Could you help him? Sealatech glass is designed for maximum protection. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Great job.
My name is Nebiswad Gonzalez. I am the son of David dePape. My dad tried his best to be a good dad. He tried his best to make us happy. I will forever appreciate my father. My father had progressive views. He really believed in human rights, equality, and justice. He was against war and was a peace activist. My father is a really sad person. If you look into his eyes, there is so much sadness there. My father told me many very sad stories about his truly tragic life. Almost no person has been through so much suffering. My father told me that his parents were always super mean to him and incredibly cruel and punishing. It's really sad to see how much suffering my father has been through. I really hope he doesn't have to go through any more suffering. I really hope he doesn't have to go through any more suffering, because it's honestly all just very sad and tragic.